well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam & Company. My name is Cam Edwards. I'm glad that you have joined me today. We've got a busy show for you. Going to be taking a look at the draft platform plank that Democrats have offered for their gun control plans. Larry Keene with the National Shooting Sports Foundation has a piece at Ammo Land right now talking about this platform plank, which is only about 2 paragraphs long, by the way, but manages to cram in all kinds of gun control laws in just a few sentences that would, taken together, turn our right to keep and bear arms into a privilege to do so. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But first, the Trump campaign has a special offer just for you. President Trump really wants to give you a signed 2020 Make America Great Again hat. He wants to make sure the lucky winner is one of his top supporters, so be sure to enter soon because this is an opportunity that you will not want to miss. This offer only going to a select group of supporters. You are one of them. All you have to do is text ARMS to 88022 today for your chance to win a signed 2020 Make America Great Again hat and own a piece of history. Again, that is ARMS to 88022 to enter to win this contest and to join President Trump in the fight to keep America great for 4 more years. Paid for by Donald J. Trump for President Incorporated. So let's get into this draft proposal here by the Democrats. This is likely to be very, very close to what the official platform plank looks like when the convention is held here in just a couple of weeks. Politico got a hold of the draft proposal. You can see for yourself here what they say. Democrats will enact universal background checks, end online sales of guns and ammunition, close dangerous loopholes that allow stalkers and some individuals convicted of assault and battery to buy and possess firearms, and adequately fund the federal background check system. Let's start there, shall we? So they say that they're going to pass universal background checks. Okay. What exactly is that going to do? You know, in the state of Virginia, we now have universal background checks on the books. It's been almost a month. I'm not aware of this law being used a single time to actually stop the transfer of a firearm from taking place. I'm actually not aware of this law being used to charge somebody after the transfer of a firearm has taken place because universal background checks are largely unenforceable. When you're dealing with retail sales, it's one thing. When you're dealing with private sales, how on earth do you actually police private gun owners selling a firearm from their private collection to another private individual? It's nearly impossible to do. In the state of Washington, for example, they've had universal background check laws on the books since, I believe, 2016, maybe even a little bit longer than that. In the first 3 years that the law was on the books, I've only been able to find 2 instances of that law actually being used to prosecute individuals. Both cases came after the transfer had occurred. The gun was used in a crime. They recovered the firearm. They were able to trace that firearm back to that person who sold the firearm without going through a background check. And it's a misdemeanor offense. Yeah. So it's not actually preventing any crime. It might be a charge that you can level against somebody after the fact, but chances are they're going to be looking at more serious charges anyway. But this is the number one proposal for Democrats. Why? Because it polls well, not because it actually does anything. End online sales of guns and ammunition. How's that going to work? Again, if you buy a gun online right now, you go online, you type in your local gun store, or maybe not your local gun store. Maybe you find a gun store in Kansas that actually has the firearm that you want, and you live in Georgia. Well, you can't buy the gun and have it shipped to your home. It's going to go from that FFL in Kansas to the FFL that you tell them to send it to in Georgia. Then you're going to have to go to that gun store in Georgia. You're going to have to fill out the 4473, go through the background check, take your gun home. That's how it works. When it comes to ammunition, it's a little bit different. And again, how on earth do you try to police something like this? What good does this do? In California, you have to undergo a background check before every ammunition purchase. And what has happened is that tens of thousands of Californians have been falsely denied the ability to purchase ammunition because the database that the state of California is using is so screwed up. Now, the state of California says, look, we've stopped several hundred individuals from purchasing ammunition through these background checks. Okay. They've also stopped, again, tens of thousands of legal gun owners from doing the same thing. Now, were those criminals actually prevented from acquiring ammunition? Probably not. They could have, again, driven over to Arizona, driven back across the border, driven to Nevada, driven to Oregon, driven to Washington State. The illicit market is going to find a way. Even if you were to prohibit all online ammunition transfers, all transactions dealing with ammunition online, you're not going to touch the illicit market for firearms and ammunition that criminals access all the time. In fact, none of these proposals that Democrats put forth actually do anything to target or address the violent criminals. All of them are aimed at legal, law-abiding gun owners. Let's go back to the proposal itself. They say we will close the Charleston loophole and prevent individuals who've been convicted of hate crimes from possessing firearms. Well, that's not the Charleston loophole. The Charleston loophole isn't even really a loophole. It's a federal law that says if you do buy a gun at a retail location and it takes longer than 3 days for that background check to come back, well, after 72 hours, that gun store can go ahead and process that transfer. That's it. That's what they call the quote-unquote Charleston loophole. What they want to do is put in place a law that allows these background checks to sit in limbo forever, if necessary. And until that background check comes back, it doesn't matter if it's 3 days or 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 years, you can't purchase a firearm. Yeah. So much for your Second Amendment rights. The government can fail to do its job without consequence. Well, without consequence to the government. The only consequence would be the deprivation of your right to keep and bear arms. All right, we've got a lot more to go here. Democrats, they say, will ban the manufacture and sale of so-called assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. The Biden proposal actually says, you got a couple of choices here. If you legally own an AR-15 right now, let's say you've got some 20-round magazines. You got a couple of choices. You could register that firearm and your magazines with the National Firearms, under the National Firearms Act. So you could pay a $200 tax stamp for every gun you own, every magazine you own. You could register that firearm with the federal government, register your magazines somehow with the federal government. That's choice one. Choice two would be you could give up that gun and your magazines under a compensated confiscation program. So they'll give you a little bit of money and you hand over your firearms. And then the third option is you just maintain possession of the gun that you currently own. You don't do anything. You don't register with the government. You don't turn it in. And you become a criminal. That's it. Now, again, each and every year, there are more Americans killed with fists and feet than with all rifles. But Democrats are focusing on the most commonly sold rifle in America today because they do want to turn your Second Amendment rights into a privilege. All right, back to the platform plank for the Democrats when it comes to gun control. They say we will incentivize states to enact licensing requirements for owning firearms and red flag laws that allow courts to temporarily remove guns from the possession of those who are a danger to themselves or others. Okay, let's break this down as well. Licensing requirements. Again, turning your right into a privilege. In New York City, for example, you want to apply for a premises permit, a license that will allow you to keep a gun in your home. You've got to hand over hundreds of dollars in non-refundable fees. You will be waiting 6 months to a year, and you can be denied for any reason or no reason whatsoever. And that's the system that they want to incentivize states to put in place from coast to coast. Red flag laws? Red flag laws are a joke. So our red flag law went into effect in Virginia on July the 1st. We just had our first instance about a week ago of this law being used against an individual in Northern Virginia who's currently behind bars being held without bail. So he's not getting out anytime soon. This guy's accused of walking into his church, walking into a Bible study, stabbing the pastor, stabbing another parishioner. The chief of police of Fairfax County happened to be at that Bible study. He tries to wrestle the guy to the ground. The guy ends up assaulting the police chief. So he's facing a number of charges. As I mentioned, he's being held without bail. So he's not getting out before trial. But even if he did get out before his trial, let's say his attorney convinces the judge, okay, go ahead and release this guy. They took his guns, right? They red flagged him. They took his guns away. So even if you think he's a danger to himself or others, what's the harm here? When he goes home, guess what's going to be waiting for him? His knives. Yeah. And matches, and gasoline, and pills, car keys. Red flag laws don't do anything to address the individual that a judge has said is a danger to themselves or others. It simply takes their legally owned firearms away and leaves the dangerous individual to their own devices. You know, we've heard that red flag laws are primarily meant to be suicide prevention measures, right? And yet in the two states that have had red flag laws on the books for the longest period of time, Connecticut and Indiana, while gun-related homicides have decreased since the red flag laws have been on the books, that decrease has been more than offset by the increase in non-gun-related suicides. So yes, more people are killing themselves in Indiana and Connecticut than were killing themselves when the red flag law was put in place. Now, to my mind, and from what I've been told, these red flag laws are not meant to be anti-gun suicide prevention measures. They're meant to be anti-suicide prevention measures. At least that's what they're billed as. But again, they aim specifically to remove any legally owned firearms while leaving the individual who may be a danger to themselves or others behind. No mental health help, no therapy, nothing. Just left with their own thoughts, their own dangerous thoughts, and everything that they could use to harm somebody other than any legally owned firearms that they might possess. The Democrats go on to say, we will pass legislation requiring that guns be safely stored in homes. Not sure how they plan to enforce a federal law against gun storage. Democrats believe that gun companies should be held responsible for their products, just like any other business, and will prioritize repealing the law that shields gun manufacturers from civil liability. So that's the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. And it's not true, by the way, that companies are held responsible for the actions of individuals using their products. If you've got somebody, let's say, who's pulled over for driving drunk, Ford Motor Company is not held responsible for the actions of that drunk driver, right? InBev, which maybe manufactured the liquor that that drunk driver drank, they're not responsible for the actions of that drunk driver. There are some states where maybe a bartender who did not cut off that drunk driver in time, maybe that bartender might have some liability. But only that bartender, right? For the Democrats, the only person that does not bear any culpability for the crime that they might commit with a firearm is the actual person who commits that crime. The gun manufacturer, the gun store owner, probably even random gun owners, they bear responsibility. But the person who actually pulled the trigger, not even mentioned by Democrats in their proposal. So again, this platform plank is the most anti-gun platform that the Democrats have put in place. You know, you already have seen folks like former President Barack Obama said during his incredibly politicized eulogy for John Lewis this week, talked about the filibuster being a racism, a relic of racism in the Senate. And we've heard that Democrats, if they do get control of the Senate, they'll end that filibuster, meaning 51 votes would be enough to enact this anti-gun agenda. Joe Biden has talked about packing the court, adding more Democrat-appointed justices to ensure that there's a anti-gun majority on there. You know, it's not just this platform. The platform itself is bad enough, but the actions that Democrats plan to take to enact this platform would absolutely turn our Second Amendment rights into Second Amendment privileges. All right, before we get to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report, another reminder that the Trump campaign has a special offer just for you. President Trump really wants to give you a signed 2020 Make America Great Again hat, and he wants to make sure that the lucky winner is one of his top supporters. So be sure to enter soon, because this is an opportunity that you won't want to miss. Offer only going to a select group of supporters. You are one of them. All you have to do is text ARMS to 88022 today for your chance to win a signed 2020 Make America Great Again hat and own a piece of history. Again, that's ARMS to 88022 to enter to win this contest and join President Trump in the fight to keep America great for 4 more years. Paid for by Donald J. Trump for President Incorporated. All right, now let's turn our attention to our recidivist report. Our armed citizen story, our good deed of the day. We'll start with our recidivist report from Paducah, Kentucky, where a 20-year-old was arrested for a shooting this week. As it turns out, 20-year-old William Moore was just released from jail. Yeah, on Monday, and he was picked up on Wednesday. Released from jail on Monday for a previous gun crime, according to WSIL-TV. Back in November of 2019, young Mr. Williams apparently fired young Mr. Moore apparently fired 3 shots at another man in Paducah, Kentucky, already released on probation for that crime. So this isn't a case of, he's been released on bail, we're waiting trial. Nope. He's already taken the plea bargain, already released back out of the streets, and 2 days after he's released on probation, he allegedly pointed a gun at a 23-year-old, pulled a trigger, shooting 23-year-old Tyreek Simmons in the face, and then fled the scene before police arrived. So he's now facing assault and gun possession charges. I'm not sure why he's not facing attempted murder charges if he shot somebody in the face, but those are the charges that he's facing when he should have been behind bars to begin with. You think maybe the lack of consequences had something to do with the fact that Mr. Moore is once again back in police custody? I think maybe that's the case. Our armed citizen story of the day from Miami-Dade, Florida. Don't have a ton of information about this. It happened Friday morning, but we do know that a woman says that she shot a male intruder who was trying to climb through her window at an apartment complex in northwest Miami-Dade. The man pronounced dead at the scene. Police are currently investigating. Again, we don't have a ton of details, but from what we know right now, certainly looks like a case of armed self-defense. And finally today, our good deed of the day, headline from Muncie, Michigan, where a conservation officer saving the life of a swimmer, an off-duty conservation officer. That would be this gentleman right there. Officer Mark Zitnick was on a boat, according to WNMU, on Munising Bay on Saturday when he heard somebody calling for help. There were 2 swimmers who apparently had gotten caught in some deep water in a strong current. One of them described as actively drowning when Officer Zitnick maneuvered his boat close enough to jump into the water and save the man. Another vessel nearby pulled up and was able to rescue that second swimmer. First swimmer says he has type 1 diabetes and said that Officer Zitnick had, quote, saved his life. So in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. Officer Mark Zitnick there in Michigan. We thank you, sir, for your very, very good deed. Now, that is about all the time we've got for you on this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. Just a program note. I am scheduled to be off next week on vacation. Fingers crossed. If something big happens, I'll be back. And my colleague Tom Knight will be keeping down the fort at bearingarms.com, updating the website with Second Amendment news and information each and every day. I've got my wedding anniversary coming up this weekend. My birthday's coming up this weekend. So we're going to try to do a little bit of celebrating. The kids are supposed to start their virtual school the week after next. And my wife is supposed to have chemo next Friday. So we've got a small window here where we can maybe take a couple of day trips around the state of Virginia. You can follow along. I don't know how active I'll be on social media next week, honestly. But if I do anything fun, I might post some pictures up at Twitter, at Cam Edwards. You can find me. On Instagram. I'm still I think I'm still on Instagram. Haven't posted in months, to be really honest with you, but add Cam Edwards there as well. In the meantime, don't forget, you can subscribe to Bearing Arms Cam & Company as a podcast at Apple Podcasts. Also, you can subscribe to Town Hall Media on YouTube. That way you never miss a program. And besides getting Bearing Arms Cam & Company, you'll get all kinds of other great content from Town Hall Media. You can also, as long as I'm plugging stuff, you can become a VIP member of Town Hall Media as well. Get exclusive analysis, commentary, live chats, and more. We did a live chat with Ed Morrissey and Julio Rosas from Town Hall this week. It was great. If you are a VIP Gold member, you can go back and actually watch that on demand. I won't be doing one next week, but I will pick it up the week after next. I'm sure that Ed and I will be having another fantastic conversation. Would love for you to be a part of it as well. But until we talk again, hope that you have a great weekend. And hopefully I won't talk to you next week. So hopefully you have a great week next week as well. But until we do have a chance to speak again, be well, be safe, be free, and we'll see you soon with another edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company.